The gospel lesson is Matthew 16, verses 13 to 20. Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said to him, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gate of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. This is the word of the Lord.
It's been a tough couple weeks. Earlier this week, that horrible news from the Middle East. James Foley, the journalist, the beheading on that very crass video. It sort of creates a whole host of feelings within us. On one hand, we are really bewildered and shocked by that behavior. On the other hand, we are enraged and we clamor for justice. And we just don't know quite how to go about getting justice. And so it's just been a bad week. Then we have all those images on the news from Ferguson, Missouri, and once again, we find ourselves in one of those very difficult situations. An 18-year-old boy is dead, and then we have all these questions about the circumstances, and of course, the big issue beneath it all is the issue around race relations. And we in our society have this unending need to talk about race relations, but we don't seem to be able to figure out how to do it in a way that is helpful and healing. So those images haunt us. And then we have the news of a very popular comedian, Robin Williams, who committed suicide. And all the questions and all the commentators and all the stuff that has been written. And I wish a lot of people wouldn't comment. I've heard so many people say, how could a man who has so much and have been so successful do this? And that's an honest question. On the other hand, anybody who's struggled with depression understands. And then you throw the oh, I just lost it. I had that when that happens. Thank you. I'm another guy with Parkinson's. I should, when you throw the Parkinson's on top of that. And there again, we need to have a conversation in our society about mental health. And we don't. I mean, if somebody breaks a leg or has a problem with the heart or some other kind of illness, We're all good about being open about it, but when someone has a mental health disorder, we struggle to say the right thing. We don't see it as a health problem like any other health problem. So we've been hit with a succession of news, bits of news, that have been a bit on the gruesome side. And when we get hit with gruesome news, it often knocks us off our game. It often unsettles us. It often causes us to behave in ways that we might not otherwise behave. And so the challenge when we get hit with really disturbing news is, how do we keep centered? How do we keep grounded? How do we keep our wits? Because it doesn't do anybody, especially ourselves, any good if we allow the heaviness of the bad news to enslave us. In the gospel lesson this morning, we have Jesus, and he's walking along with his disciples. And you know, Jesus has become pretty popular now. Jesus is known throughout Judea. People go great distances to hear him, to see him, to be touched by him. And so he's the object of a lot of conversation. A whole lot of conversation. And so in this conversation with his own disciples, he throws out a question. What are they saying about me out there? What are they saying about me? What are they saying I am? And so you can imagine the disciples saying, well, Jesus, we heard this person say this and this person say that. Someone said you're like John the Baptist. Someone said you're the new Elijah. Someone said this and someone said that. You can imagine that. Then all of a sudden, Jesus asks another question that probably becomes really important to those disciples as they walk along. He says, who do you say I am? And you can imagine the disciples getting very, very quiet. Then finally, out of nowhere, Peter shouts out, "You're the Messiah! You're the one! You're the one God has sent to transform us. You're the one God has sent to save Israel. You're the one God has sent to reconcile all of us with our Creator. You're the Messiah. You're the one." And so Peter gets it, and out of nowhere he gets it. And Jesus says, "You are right. And the only reason you know this is that God has instilled this in you." Now, why would Jesus go from, "What are they saying about me?" to, "What do you say that I am?" And I think the question shift that Jesus makes is related to the conversation that I began a few moments ago about living under the weight of very dark and disturbing news. And how dark and disturbing news can unnerve us. And can cause us to behave in ways we later look back upon and go, "Oh, I can't believe I did that." gets filled in that center? There is. The marketplace wants a piece of our center. They do. They're always on the TV. They're on billboards. Everywhere. They want a piece of our center. The marketplace wants a piece of our center so that we buy their stuff. I mean, and we find ourselves sort of attracted to that. How many of us watch the Super Bowl for the commercials? They're clever, they're fun, they're smart, and they're after our center. Our employers are often after our center. They want us to be thinking about how to be a better employee 24/7. And so, there they are, competing for space in the center. My dad ran a hardware store when I was a child growing up. And I can remember on Christmas Eve, the phone would ring at the house. And somebody putting together a toy for Santa to deliver at their particular house discovered that the toy was missing a part. So they drove down to the store. Of course, the store was closed, but my dad's name was on the door, and his home phone number was on the door. And so when the storm comes up, the mooring line is designed in such a way to allow the ship to rise and fall, but never, ever leave port. Jesus is like the mooring line. And so it is in our best interest to want to make Jesus a part of our center. But there's the downside to this. And the downside is this. It can best be illustrated by a friend of mine's story. She tells me that when she was pastoring a church in New York State, she had an after-school program. And this 6th grader started coming to this after-school program. And he became really connected to this after-school program after church. And he came every Wednesday night, and then he started coming to church, and he started going to Sunday school, and then suddenly he disappeared. And he didn't come anymore. Missing. She went to his house and knocked on his door, and he came to the door, and he said, "We've missed you at church. Why don't you come?" And he said, "Well, I learned something about Jesus. He messes with you. And nobody messes with me." The reality is that if we make Jesus the center of our life, he makes us gentle, he makes us loving, he makes us peaceful. He gives us a perspective that allows us to ride through the storms. And the deal is, he changes us. He messes with us. So when we invite Jesus into the center of our lives, yes, he is the mooring line that protects us, but he is also the transforming figure who begins to reshape us. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to be reshaped? Do we want to be reshaped? Do we want to hold on to who we are and what we are? When back in the 70s and 80s, the original Star Wars came out. The original 3. You remember Darth Vader? How dark and evil and ominous he was? And you remember Luke Skywalker? How good and pure and generous he was? And how the 3rd episode in that series was going to be this big match between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. And I remember loathing Darth Vader. And I was looking forward to that psychological release when Luke Skywalker, the hero, will put Darth Vader down. Will destroy him once and for all. And my friend Mel and I were sitting there watching this movie unfold, waiting for that moment when Luke Skywalker would have Darth Vader in his sights. And we get to that sight, and Darth Vader can destroy, or Luke Skywalker can destroy Darth Vader. And guess what Luke does? He puts down his lightsaber. He decides he's going to save Darth Vader. He's going to heal and reconcile with this evil presence. And I was never so disappointed in anything. I came out of that movie theater angry, and I said to my friend Mel, "George Lucas Christianized Star Wars. How dare he do that?" See, there's something in us reconciling and healing and transforming the bad. That's a tough thing to accept. But it is what it is. As much as my wife hates it when I say that statement. Jesus, the center of our life, changes us, messes with us. But he also holds fast to us in the darkest moments. Know that you are loved in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.